They sing from the slopes of Everest, Earth's highest mountain, in the Himalayan kingdom of Nepal.
We wish you long live, long live, long live, immortal.
They sing of a man named Edmund Hillary. Their own Sherpa Tenzing and he, Edmund Hillary, were the first to climb that highest of mountains, Everest. But that's not why these children sing of Edmund Hillary. There's a tale that should be told, while those involved are still alive to tell it, of why these children sing of Edmund Hillary.
Well, it's really hard to believe that we two venerable gentlemen, it's almost 50 years now since we first walked along this path. At the head of the valleys were this multitude of great peaks, and of course towering above a lot of them was Mount Everest. And I must admit that George and I were hoping to get the opportunity to get to grips with the mountain and maybe have a chance to actually reach the summit.
Yes, so I suppose I was in my late 20s, Ed was in his early 30s, and the spring in our step was very great. There was a feeling that the time had now come that the mountain was going to be climbed.
George Lowe and my father were incredibly good friends. Dad just loved George's sense of humour. I think George kept Dad laughing the whole time during those early expeditions. But I think importantly, George and Dad had a great depth of alpine skills. And I think George and Dad really were fundamentally essential on the expedition.
George had many important roles on Mount Everest. He worked on establishing the route up the Lochi face. He led my team, Tenzing and myself, up high on the southeast ridge to establish our final camp. My ambition had always been that George and I would be the summit pair, but that was not to be. But George had made his big contribution and helped put us in place, and Tenzing and I carried on and finally reached the summit of the world.
The news reached London in a message to the Times from Colonel H.C.J. Hunt, the expedition's leader. It said that Mr. E.P. Hillary, a New Zealander, and Tenzing Bhutia, a Sherpa, had reached the summit last Friday, May 29th. Message added, all is well.
Well, we climbed Everest and we left the region, not knowing if we'd ever return. Not knowing that for me, Everest would be a stepping stone to something far more satisfying right here within its valley. And never in my wildest dreams could I ever have imagined that here I'd be in my 80th year, being flown in by a Sherpa helicopter pilot back to the very place where this most satisfying 40 years of my life began. It is a very great pleasure for my wife and myself and my colleagues to return to Kunjung School. Of all the schools with which we are involved, Kunjung was the first, and it is our favourite school. It was not my idea to build Kunjung School. I asked my Sherpa friends if we could do something, what should it be? And they all agreed that the most important thing was to have a school in Kunjung village. And so the school was built. We built the Kunjung School and got it rolling, and I really thought that was going to be the end of it. But that was not to be the case. We had petitions from villagers many days' walk away.
The monks helped a young lad of 10 with this petition written in Tibetan script, and in it said, "We have eyes but cannot see. We have ears and cannot hear. Will you help us to have a school? There's a big world outside," in effect, was what they were saying. "Can you help us?" And "can you help us" meant, will you help us to have a school and make sense of the things that are going to happen to us.
So we built that school too. And now, heavens alive, we've established and we maintain and support more than 30 schools in the Solu Khumbu area. And so it happened that here, amongst the people of Everest, almost by chance, I'd found a new vocation. Working side by side with my Sherpa friends, wielding hammers now, not ice axes, fashioning the rocks we used to climb into schoolhouse walls. On behalf of the Himalayan Trust and all those who have helped build this school, I have much pleasure now in declaring the school open. My whole family became very much involved in this whole project. My wife and children spent quite a lot of time up in this area and also learned to have a deep affection and friendship with the Sherpa people. And I think this added something not only to my enjoyment, but certainly the enjoyment of the Sherpas.
The first time I came to this part of the world, in the Mount Everest area, I was just 11 years old, and we did all of this sort of work with my father. was just such an adventure as a family to be able to do this work and work with the local Sherpa and Nepali community. And so these days it's been great to help organise student groups to come back here to Solukhumbu and make a small contribution to the lifestyles of the people who live here.
Western contact with the Sherpas is really quite a recent thing. The Sherpas, about 500 years ago, started migrating over the passes from Tibet to settle here on the southern slopes of Everest in Nepal. But Nepal was virtually closed to Westerners until quite recently. When George Lowe and I first came here in the early 50s, we were among the first Westerners ever to see the Sherpas' spectacular homeland and to get to know them as people.
Oh, Aunt Julie, namaste. Very good to see you.
As we got to know many families and develop deep friendships, we became more aware of the difficulties they faced in this wild and remote region. It was through our very good friend Angduli that we became aware of the high incidence of infant mortality, for example.
Oh, very good.
Look, Timbo.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did.
He said if I... He's saying if I give him my jacket, it might be a reasonable swap. Oh, did you Angduli has been a close family friend for nearly 40 years, and in many ways I think of her as my Sherpa mother. But when we came to know that she had lost 8 babies, and out of her 3 remaining children, Temba here is deaf, caused by iodine deficiency, and we really knew we wanted to do something to help this community.
The Sherpas not only had a great desire for education for their children, but they also were most anxious for the ability to have medical treatment, both for themselves and for their kids. And finally, way up in the little village of Kundi, we built the first hospital in the area, Kundi Hospital. In the Kundi Hospital, we have quite a lot of local staff, but generally we have 2 volunteer foreign doctors. But then a bit further down valley in the Solu district, where there's a much bigger population, there's also a very great need for a hospital. So we built the Faflu Hospital. And there now we have a very experienced Sherpa doctor who is superintendent of the whole area and who really does an absolutely magnificent job. Our ultimate objective has to be to have the people who are doing medical work to be local people who have good training and who can carry on the work in the years ahead when we have departed.
They said, no, we'll build outside.
Working with the local people, we are helping establish a hospital here in this beautiful location, we feel. There's lovely trees. There are going to be 6 rooms. The first one is where the medical staff live, and it has a lovely view of the mountains up the valley.
1975, the year we were building this hospital in Whawhlu, was to have been a special year for the Hillary family. We'd spent a lot of time there before, of course, but in 1975 we decided we'd spend the whole of the year in Nepal. I planned to devote most of the year up here in the hills with my team building Whawhlu Hospital. But we'd built an airstrip near the hospital site, and the idea was that my family would fly up from Kathmandu periodically to join me.
"40 years of involvement up here, on that sort of more philanthropic side, has been a huge family commitment. But it's been a bit of a love affair with the place as well. But there have been huge sacrifices.
In 1975, I had a rather tremendous disaster for me when my wife and my youngest daughter, who were flying in to join me at the site of the Whawhlu Hospital, which we were just building, the plane crashed and both of them were killed. This was a terrible shock to me, of course, and for 2 years I really just struggled on, hardly knowing what to do. But I did realise that the only thing I could possibly do was to carry out the work that they'd all been supporting, to complete the hospital and complete other schools. This was the only way that I would escape from the disaster of my family. My wife and I had very good friends, Peter and June Mulgrew. Peter had been with me to the South Pole and had also climbed in the Himalayas. Well, then disaster struck that family, and Peter died in a plane crash in the Antarctic. So that really only left June and me. And as we'd been friends for many, many years and had worked together on all these projects, we became a very warm relationship developed, and now for many years she has been my wife.
I think that we considered ourselves a foursome, although of course Louise and Ed had a vast array of friends, but we did do quite a lot of things together. And then when Louise died in 1975 and Peter, my husband, died in 1979 on Erebus in the Antarctic, suddenly Ed and I thought, well, maybe we just sort of press on anyway, and now that's 20 years ago, just about 20 years ago. Time seems to go twice as fast when you're getting older.
When June started travelling with me full-time in Nepal in the early 80s, the building side of things was in full swing. We'd often walk in from Kathmandu with loads of porters carrying all the paraphernalia needed for school building, bridge building, or a water pipeline for a village, or whatever the projects were for that year. Very often my brother Rex was there as well. He was extremely useful because he was a builder by trade. And there'd be other Western helpers too, many of them old climbing friends of mine. And always in the thick of it was my head Sherpa, Ming Masering, who couldn't read or write, but I doubt there's been a computer invented yet with a mind as good as his. There were many Sherpas helping actually, for everything we've ever done has been done at their request, and they provide a lot of the manpower and the child power too, I might say. Throughout these years, I did find time for other activities, other adventures, including some quite exciting times playing around in jet boats. In 1977, a group of us, including Sherpa friends, set out to travel the entire length of the Ganges River, from its tiger-infested delta to its Himalayan snows. Well, I really think it turned out to be perhaps the most memorable of all my adventures. And what perhaps surprised us most was that just about the whole of India seemed intent upon coming with us. Well, we had some pretty exciting moments in its upper reaches, and we managed to frighten ourselves remarkably frequently. Finally, it was my son Peter who led the climb up the snowy crest that's one of the watersheds of the Ganges. Some years later, I and some of these same friends and their families set about climbing India, from its tropical south to its icy north. It wasn't a big hair-raising adventure like some in my old days, but I've always said it's not the size of the adventure that matters. The important thing is that we have them.
Thora Rajasthani. Thora Rajasthani. Ayo Rajasthani juga English tadi. Okay. Rel.
We got ourselves as far as we could off the beaten track. Immersed ourselves in the beauty and diversity of this great land. And more than ever, I think these adventures reinforced my deep affection for India and the whole South Asian region.
When I went to India before the election, I promised the former staff of the High Commission and the Indian government that on election we'd reopen the post. And I did, and the first and only choice was Ed Hillary. He was Mr. New Zealand in India. He was the guy known to them all, the subject of adulation. His exploits were understood. He was New Zealand walking on the subcontinent. And what a success he was. A High Commissioner is no use unless he can open doors, and Hillary could open every door. He could open every door from the smallest shed to the biggest palace. He knew board people, he knew politicians, and he was respected and sometimes adored.
In English, it is called clay pipe.
Oh, clay pipe.
Bubble, bubble, and clay pipe.
Yeah, right. It's a very big clay pipe, yeah. Were you all born here in this area?
Well, Ed Hillary was prepared to do just about anything to be the High Commissioner in India. He never discussed salary or perquisites. All he wanted to know, if he gave everything else up, could he do work for the Sherpa still? That was his mission, and I was delighted with that because it was our mission too. And I said to him, go to it. And he did. He kept the faith, he did the job, he combined two things beautifully.
The nearly 5 years that we were in India, which was so much closer to Nepal, of course, and we were also representing New Zealand in Nepal, so it was very easy for us. So we were up here more often, and we went into the hills frequently, and Ed was wielding a hammer quite often. A High Commissioner with a hammer, that's very true, but always with a bodyguard watching him, which was always slightly different from what we were used to. The bodyguard looked after him very well, even used to zip him up in the tent every night. It was a great experience. Added a new dimension to our time in Nepal, I must say.
I think it's a rather delightful part of the school day for all the children up here is that all the schools use an old Everest oxygen bottle as the school bell. And many of them have to sort of drop what they're doing. They're doing odd jobs around their parents' farm. Some have been walking for half an hour, hour and a half, even longer to get there, to get to school. I think it's the educational side, the small schools that the Trust and my father have built over the last nearly 40 years. And they're the most important, I think, for a very good reason, that if you've got some education, you can understand the health care that you're getting. You can better apply it to, you know, better commerce, better farming, all sorts of other possibilities.
Of course, building schools is one thing, but maintaining the standards of the schools is certainly at least as important. And really, George, he was a school teacher himself, took it on himself to do a trip around the various schools and report on them and make recommendations.
The basic thing that I said was that they couldn't make a move forward until such time as they had teacher training, because all you had to do was to finish your secondary school and you could be a teacher without any knowledge of what to do. And standing behind me is the building which was put up 2 years ago specifically for training of teachers.
We have 200 of these teachers spend 2 months over the Christmas period being instructed by expert teachers from the outside world, and we really feel that the standard of teaching in these remote primary schools is making giant steps forward.
Fire in the mountain, run, run, run. Fire in the mountain, run, run, run. Fire in the mountain, run, run.
This teacher training program is taken off, and it's just like wildfire now. It's raised teacher status, and it's raised their spirit, and also left them to make up games and innovate amongst themselves. And that's been a very, very big step forward. Again, it's come from the teacher training, that the teachers have been given the idea that some of the best of learning is done outside when their children can be on the move. And this is helping the teachers now enormously, because everybody's enjoying it. It isn't a formal situation inside.
Everyone's getting ready a couple of days ahead of time before my father and June arrive up here. It's going to be a big event.
The changes, I think, have been amazing. This was a very dark and miserable place with muddy floor. Now there's a good rock on the floor, and the skylights bring in plenty of light. And then we have all these things on the wall, which are very decorative. I think it looks very much better.
One thing that encourages us enormously is that these simple little mountain schools have proved that they can produce students who can rise up through the ranks. Even our helicopter pilot, Captain Dawa, went to Bainey Primary School many years before. So we know that given the opportunity, these mountain people of ours, these good friends, can respond, and they can take advantage of the education and really make great strides forward.
Safe, safe, safe.
I've been attending these welcoming ceremonies for 40 years now, and it really does give me a great deal of pleasure when I see a little boy like the one twirling around there, who now has a PhD in looking after national parks. Sherpa Calvin here had a son, Angrita, who later topped the school leaving certificate examination in the whole of Nepal. Has several degrees, and now I'm happy to say works for us as our chief administrator and does a wonderful job tying together all our construction and other problems that we have.
It really is quite a big administrative task now. We have a full-time office in Kathmandu, and we also do quite a bit of paperwork back here in New Zealand. And there are hard-working foundations in half a dozen other countries too. We also spend quite a bit of time, 3 to 4 months a year, on the road, travelling the world, raising funds.
Ed lectures and I go along in support, I suppose. It's quite hard work, but we have a lot of friends in different places and they're very supportive, and that keeps our finances going.
Why do I want to keep on with my work in Nepal, even when I'm 80 years old? Maybe I should be lolling about on a sun-drenched beach somewhere. Well, it's certainly not because of some altruistic passion. I'm not really one of those do-gooders around the place. I think it's more a feeling of friendship and a sense of responsibility. It all started with the building of a simple mountain school, which strangely seemed to give me more satisfaction than a footprint on a mountaintop. That sense of purpose remains, and I know that as long as I can put one foot in front of the other, Sherpa Hillary will continue to walk those mountain trails. Thank you. Each year we continue to go up into the hills of Nepal for about 10 days or so now, basing ourselves here at Phaflu at about 8,000 feet, where there's just about enough oxygen in the air to keep me happy. And we do short trips from here by foot or by helicopter. Our various projects over the years have ranged in altitude from bridges at 7,000 feet to this airstrip we built at Lukla at around 9,000 feet, right up to around 14,000 feet above sea level. Well, 14,000 feet's a little beyond me now. So Peter, who also climbed Everest, sometimes goes in my place as a kind of high-altitude emissary.
My name is Peter Hillary.
Peter Hillary.
But
Peter Hillary.
My father cannot come here today because in 3 months he is 80 years old. But he is very fond of Tami village. It is a very special place in his heart. So today he has sent myself to come here to get some pictures of the Gompa and of the village, so that he can use them when he travels around America and Europe to raise money for Solukhumbu.
We were very much aware that the Sherpa people had very, very strong religious ties to their Buddhist monasteries. The Buddhist monasteries were not only religious centres, but they were cultural centres as well. And when the monks approached us for help in maintaining their buildings, or even for supplying teachers for their young monks, then we responded. We had some beautiful monasteries. The Tami monastery, perched on the side of a great cliff, was one of the earlier monasteries in the area. But the largest monastery, the one at Tangbochi, burnt down a few years ago. And we accepted the responsibility of travelling around the world, raising all the money that was needed for the rebuilding of Tangbochi Monastery. And now it is up there again, as beautiful as ever. It's a wonderful position.
About 3 years ago, Ed and I were sitting in here and it was unfinished. It had just started and it really goes so big. And Ed said to me, I never thought I was going to be building a cathedral. And it really is, 3 stories high. It's beautiful. It cost him a lot of money for the special set of clothing. No, it's much more significant than that. This is a very special moment.
Oh,
Incredible, wonderful.
Om Mani Padme Hum.
Long live our Bara Sahib, long live our Bara Sahib, long live our Bara Sahib. Long live our Bara Sahib, long live our Bara Sahib. Yeah. She did it. Oh, okay. She did it.
This is now, isn't it?
Oh.
Yeah, okay.
But more. Yeah, one second.
Petitions, yes. It's still a very new monastery and they're still looking for more help. But they raise an awful lot of money themselves too. It's quite a well-to-do area. Always plans for this.
Now let me read this. Anguita, would you say this is a very great honour, and the salary now has another mark for the monastery?
र तपाईहरुको नयाँको म आज एउटा नयाँ लामा पनि थपेको छ अरे
I only hope that my wife treats me with more respect.
र अब आज छ मेरो श्रीमतीले मलाई अझै आज बढी आदरले सम्मान गर्छ र मलाई राम्रो हेर्छ
I have not discussed the request for help with the kitchen with my colleagues, but I will take it on myself to say that we will contribute 2 lakhs this year. Thank you very much. It is always a great pleasure to return to this beautiful Dwampa, which we believe is an important religious and cultural centre for the Solu area.
जाऊ न ओइ काली बहादुर तिमीहरु आउने हैन
We're approached by monasteries, by schools, and by large numbers of individuals who may want help to go to school, or who are just poor or sick or lonely. And in a way, we have to almost play at being God. I don't particularly like doing that, to tell you the honest truth, but that's what we have to do. We have to decide what particular project we can afford to actually finance. You know, a beautiful little child will come along and say, I have no mother, no father, and no money, but I want to go to school, will you help? It's very hard to resist talks like that.
Rather touching little story.
The petitions are hard work because every one of them is just that little bit different, and every one of them is somebody in need. I think that's probably the hardest part of the whole business. Where we are in Pāwhatu, there's a very large Kami community, which is getting larger, I think, and they really haven't got much.
The Kamis are really the bottom of the pile in the social scale here, sadly. And these 2 boys presented a petition to Ed Hillary and asked if they could have a hall where they could have a meeting because they had nothing. So we came along last year and paid a visit and had a look to see that the building had been built, but they had roofed it with old kerosene tins. Their money had run out. And so we asked them to ask the Bara Sahib again for a roof. And now they've put a new roof on, and we've seen it. So this is their meeting house, which they've never had before. What I do see is that they've got the wherewithal for having electricity, and they haven't got the money for bulbs. And here the electrical fittings are sitting up on there, and there's no bulbs in place. So there's a good reason for another little petition. There is no end to the need here. There'll always be people at the door. It is an uphill task. But that's been Ed's strength, uphill tasks. I've seen it on Everest, and I see it still. He'll just keep plugging on until he can't go one step more.
In many ways, the footprints that he and Tenzing trod on the summit of Mount Everest have long gone. The snows of many monsoons have covered them over. But the impact on the people down here on Solukhumbu and the villages around the base of Mount Everest, the impact on those people, it'll be a long, long time before he's forgotten by them.
We wish you long live, long live, long live, Edmund Hillary, Edmund Hillary, Edmund Hillary.
Well, it's the people, isn't it, Ed?
Yeah.
You know, we came for the mountains.
Ah, very nice people.
We came for the mountains, and we really stayed on for the people. And they're great friends. And it's hard to give it up.
And we don't want to give it up either.
We wish you long live, long live, long live, Edmund Hillary, Edmund Hillary, Edmund Hillary.
Wow.